From my mother's basement, here's Johnny. Hooray! What the hell are we even talking about today? I don't even know. I'm so happy. Talking about Raw. Monday Night Raw from the April 9th edition. And maybe even tying it in with the Raw the week before. If I can do math, that would have been on the 2nd of April. Wow. Makes sense because WrestleMania was on April Fool's Day. Normally I go on at length and have, this problem of diarrhea from the mouth, and I can't really shut up. But today is kind of good. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to tell you what I think. I think Raw has been dramatically better, especially the two since WrestleMania. The Raws that were building up to WrestleMania, for me, they were kind of doing that, but it wasn't really all that exciting to me. It was like, yeah, okay, let's just get to it and get on with it. The whole thing for me is that WrestleMania 28 was built for like a fucking year, and it got to the point where I was tired of the build. I just wanted it to come and go already. I just really didn't care anymore. I think a lot of us fans were pleasantly surprised. We just thought it was going to be another typical Cena victory, and we thought Rock was going to come in, get paid, do the job, and go home. And apparently that's not what's going to happen, or at least that's not what he wants us to think. Cena actually took the loss at WrestleMania. Things have been weird ever since, especially on Raw. Rock came out and he said his piece, and he went on. He congratulated Cena for being a great competitor and giving a good match and all this stuff. I didn't think that match was anything special. I thought the ending was the best part, where it was a surprise and hooray! Rock gets the win. But I mean, in terms of psychology or telling a story, they had a couple of near falls. We were all scared that Cena was just gonna do his fucking 5 moves of doom and win, and it didn't end up that way. So, again, pleasantly surprised. We had the next night on Raw when Cena came out to, shake the Rock's hand or whatever and call him the bigger man. We had the return of one Brock Lesnar, whom you quote me on saying that I'm not a huge Brock Lesnar fan. I don't like the fact that, he left the company after all those people had gone down for him. He kind of said, like, fuck you, essentially, to all the people that got behind him. You don't get that much momentum if they don't plan on doing something huge with you. And they put the title on him. He went over guys he probably should have never had business going over. Some people may love Brock Lesnar, think he's just what the WWE needs right now. I don't know. I'm a little bit biased because of the history and the past. But I will say this. I mean, it's nice to see that Cena is getting dominated 2 weeks in a row by a giant behemoth that looks like he could generally wipe the floor with Cena. So it's nice to see Cena in that underdog role. Because even with Rock, it didn't feel like he was necessarily in an underdog role. I mean, in terms of promos and everything, yes, but it seemed like he had the WWE on his side or whatever, and now with Brock, it's just that Brock is so much bigger than him and a legitimate kind of UFC fighter that it almost makes you question what they're doing and where they're going to go with it. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, Brock Lesnar and Cena locking up horns right now at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, within the same month even as WrestleMania is too soon. But if you think about it, they're doing the right thing. If you're thinking from a business, casually kind of fan standpoint, the night after WrestleMania is where you're supposed to really wrap everything up from the night before, and they injected the Brock Lesnar thing as a huge surprise. And if you didn't see that night, you heard about it all the next week. People were buzzing about wrestling again, that's what made wrestling really popular in the Attitude Era, was that everybody buzzed about it. It was exciting. It was unpredictable. So this was a nice change of pace. I'm not gonna lie, and be like, "Oh, Brock Lesnar, save us," because I don't really feel like that's the answer necessarily. But if it puts somebody new into the title scene for a while, and somebody that is, was an effective sort of heel back in when they had their time to shine, then yes, I think this is the right move for them business wise. Because if you caught Raw last night, like I did, you were pleasantly surprised again to see that Lesnar looks like he has the upper hand, and Cena just didn't come out and squash him. They announced the match for the pay-per-view in order to make sure that the people whose eyes were on the TV were like, "Oh, he's going to be at that pay-per-view." Otherwise, nobody would care. But the people that had bought WrestleMania, that were surprised with The Rock winning, that have seen the effort that they put into the WrestleMania this year, as opposed to, the couple in the past few. I'll say 3 or 4 to be safe, but I mean, all around since 21 and 24, I don't really think there's been one that's been epic or even feeling big. They've all been kind of like a 1 or 2 match to remember kind of thing. And although this WrestleMania wasn't like a fucking A+ stellar show to me, I mean, it still did its job. It was still interesting. It was unpredictable. At least, I mean, I thought Jericho was going to go over. I didn't think that Sheamus was going to win the title in fucking 20 seconds or whatever it was. So, it was nice. It was a good change of pace. But, at the end of the day, they're taking all those eyeballs that were glued on WrestleMania. They brought it to the night after. They introduced Brock Lesnar to feud with Cena now. And they're trying to cash in on that, because if they can hold your attention with that, then 1, Extreme Rules is going to get a good buy rate. 2, their overall pay-per-view buy rates are going to go up. And 3, if they can milk it out till, extend it for a program through, the end of April, you get June, you get May. Wow, I'm really bad at this. May, June, July, and then SummerSlam. So if they can do that, they can have a big bang off, payday at SummerSlam with Cena and Lesnar really getting into it. Or by then they might have it over with, and they might have Brock Lesnar injected into a title scene push where he could win the belt. And, I'm pretty sure that they're going to cash in on him for at least a year and let him go through until WrestleMania 29, which is going to be in the Giant Stadium there, because they need to do something big. And I don't think that Rock is necessarily going to come back if it's the same old shit with John Cena. So if it's going to be him versus Lesnar at WrestleMania, I could see that as being a really big draw. Rock saying he wanted to be champ again anyway. This kind of makes sense. It makes good business, logical sense. Now, as for anybody saying that this is holding down, the younger guys and all that, let's be fair. Some of these younger guys really aren't ready to be in the main event. You've got Sheamus, who is finally on his babyface run. He was put in the main event right when he got in, and nobody cared. It's taken him this long to get a fan following behind him. Guys like Wade Barrett, they're internet fan favorites, but do they really have the crowd behind them? Does anybody really care otherwise? Like, I love Wade Barrett, but he's not there. He got injured, and let's say he wins Money in the Bank. That's going to be his claim to fame. They're not going to put him over, I don't think, at the Royal Rumble. I think, if anything, they'll have Rock come back and win the Royal Rumble at this point, because they had Sheamus, a nice, younger, fresher face, win it, this year. So who's to say that the next one isn't going to be an older, more established star, in order to keep the buy rate up for that, too. Because if everybody knows that Lesnar's in the Royal Rumble, they'll probably tune in for that as well. Lesnar's a big name, whether you like it or not. I don't tend to like it, but I can see where it would be important, with their mindset and where they are now. They want to make money, and this is kind of entertaining, because at least it's a guy that we haven't seen to death. I'd prefer seeing him over somebody like Orton win it again, or seeing Cena win it again, or just the same shit. And now, figure with the whole Triple H, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels fallout, with the end of an era, who the fuck else do they have? That's 3 big names that you just tied up in that storyline for a while, and they're not going to be available to fight anybody else. And Taker's probably done. He's probably going to go into the Hall of Fame this coming year. Like, I wouldn't doubt it at all. So, what do? Well, they bring in Brock Lesnar, and they let him go for a year. And maybe they'll bring Batista, maybe they won't. But this is the time right now, while they have our attention on Lesnar, and, we're not really focusing on the lack of main event stars. This is when you build people up into main event stars. If Lesnar destroys Cena, if he goes through CM Punk, who's left? Orton? Come on, he's a SmackDown guy, so it doesn't really make sense. You have to build some other big baby faces up to take him on. Just by associating a baby face in the same ring as Brock Lesnar, whether it's a Kofi Kingston, whether it's an R-Truth, whether it's, I don't know, a big guy like a Brodus Clay, whether it's fucking, who gives a shit? I don't know. Whether it's Big Show, now, granted, Big Show's more of a veteran, established star, but the point is, you could put somebody else in there with him, and it wouldn't feel like necessarily the same old shit. Whereas, if you were to have Cena win the belt again, who's he going to feud with? Same people he's always been feuding with? And they squashed, this past year and all that, so it's a good way to change it up and make us older fans feel like it's not the same recycled garbage, even though, essentially, all wrestling is the same recycled stuff. You just don't present it in the method as where people refer to it as garbage. Like, everything that they've tried to do over the past 20 years is shit that they were doing in the 70s and the 50s and before that. So, what's really new in wrestling? The names on the fucking products? I don't know. Before it was WWE, it was WWF. Before that, it was WWWF. Hooray. TNA is just a rebranding of an old Jarrett territory, and it's got a lot of WCW trademark people in it. Ring of Honor was a no-name fucking indie promotion that started to get a lot of, hype because mainly Jim Cornette. Same wrestling going on, same high spots, same whatever, each company, but, it's got different name and a different value associated with it. I think this is really good for wrestling right now. I thought that Raw on the 9th here, I don't know when this video is going to get up or when you're going to see it, but I thought Raw was pretty awesome, beginning to end. I was very entertained. I like what they're doing with the Jericho and the Punk thing, keeping it going rather than just destroying it after WrestleMania, which is what I kind of thought it was going to happen. Especially since Jericho didn't get the title. I thought it was just going to be done and he was going to be off. But apparently I was wrong, and I'm pleasantly surprised by that too. So it's nice to see what they're working with right now. And it feels all in all like, even though 2010 was kind of a rough year, 2009 was kind of a rough year, 2011 seemed like it tried to go up the ladder, and I feel like 2012's already started off really well. And having The Rock come back and win at WrestleMania doesn't hurt anything. So it's just not, because it feels like it's a bigger year for them. I think WrestleMania did 1.9 million. That's huge. That's a gigantic buy rate for a pay-per-view. Where they were projecting 1.4, they were going to be happy with that. They got 500,000 more buy rates than they had anticipated. That's phenomenal. And not to delude their own ego or try to inflate them at all, but it was worth it. Like, people that paid money to see WrestleMania probably felt like they got their money's worth this year as opposed to years past. People will probably be more apt to buy it next year. If people do get one pay-per-view a year, that's generally the big one because it's the big one. It's hard to argue with that logic. So it's nice to see them at least perpetuate, and put the gears in motion so that this next WrestleMania will feel big too. I don't really have any shit talk comments or stuff that I thought that they could have done better on Raw, except for the Jericho and Punk kind of dialogue in between, and then the match with Henry. That felt like it dragged on a really long time to me. That's really my only gripe. I would have shortened it probably about like 4 or 5 minutes and done something else, but I see where they're going with it. And Punk is the champ, and when Austin and when Triple H and when these other guys were champ, we shut the fuck up and we listened. So maybe we ought to just give, you know, the devil his due or whatever. Well, Jesus, I said this was going to be quick, and here we are 15 minutes later. So I'm going to stop right here. Feel free to comment below and whatever and get my dialogues going. I'm really happy I could take the time out of my day to do this. I've been doing too many school papers, too much homework. Ugh. It's nice to get my head clear for a minute. So, later, guys.